All right, so welcome to Module 4. So we just finished up Module 3, and now we're proceeding on to Module 4, which is talking about mainly with regard to retirement and some other life insurance concepts we want to cover today. So to begin, we want to start off by looking at topic 1, which is third-party ownership. So in the previous modules, we've been mainly looking at individual life insurance, the policies, the provisions that are involved as well. But today we want to look more into these third-party types of ownership. So if we have an employer, an employee, how does coverage work, right? Especially in business settings, right? So when we look at the definition of third-party ownership, this is where the owner of an insurance policy is someone other than the insured. So as I mentioned, right, it might be a business owning a policy and a key employee, but it can also be a parent owning a policy and a child, right? Because that's an example of where the policy owner, right, is different from the insured. And so whenever there is a sale of an existing life insurance policy to a third party, okay, then that's called a life settlement. There's just another term for us to kind of know. And so the reason we want to talk about this is that the procedure is when the new owner receives the policy, right? Then it'll take over premium payments and receive the death benefit when the insured dies, right? So we see that there's that sale, right, of the life insurance policy to that third party, right? Oops. Okay, so now we want to take a look at group life insurance, right? So again, with third-party ownership, a lot of it relates and ties back to this group concept of group life insurance. And so this is where, right, a single policy is issued to a group of people, right? So usually, as I mentioned, it can be with employees of a company or members of an organization too. Now, why is this third-party ownership? Well, usually, right, with the company, right, we have an employer, right, and the employer will be the owner, and the employees are the insured, right? Same thing with the members of an organization. We can have someone who's leading the organization as the policy owner, and the members being the insured. So that would be an example, right, if we go back to the definition of third-party ownership. Now, with regard with group life insurance, there's some key points that we want to keep in the back of our minds, and that's that first, coverage is often provided at lower cost than individual policies, right? So with individual policies, there are a lot of administrative fees and other costs as well, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. But since we have this one policy just issued to a group of people, right? You can imagine how that would save costs and time for the insurance company, right? For example, with underwriting procedures. In terms of some vocabulary here, with group life insurance, a master policy would be issued to the employer or the group leader. And insureds, right, it could be the employees or the group members, right, would then receive certificates of insurance. So these are just some terms, right, that we want to associate with group insurance, no matter if it's with health or life insurance. Now, let's take a look at this statement here. And so if we want to think about if the employer can be the policy owner and beneficiary, right? We want to think about if this is true or false, because this is important when we tie it to group life insurance and when we tie it to business-specific policies. And if we take a look at this, next slide here, we're going to take a look at, right, if this is true or false. But now let's just keep in the back of our minds and then we'll come back to it. Okay, so with group life insurance, there are some terms and some policies that are unique to it. So everything that we've talked about in the previous modules, including the contestability period, the misstatement of age and gender provisions with beneficiaries, those still apply. But there's some very specific policies that we want to just talk about for these group policies. And first, it's the conversion privilege. So just as the kind of term mentions, right, conversion privilege allows an individual under a group life insurance to convert the coverage to a individual policy, right? So converting to an individual policy without providing evidence of insurability. And usually it's within that 31 period after leaving the group. Okay. Now, if the person insured under the group policy dies within the conversion privilege period, then any death benefit provided by group policy will be paid, right? So during those 31 days, right, the individual still has coverage. Now, this privilege, right, can be utilized in many circumstances. We can have individual you know, that was terminated from work or decided to leave the company, right? And so then, right, that would start that conversion privilege or those 31 days to convert to these individual policies. We also want to take a look at contributory versus non-contributory group plans. So when we talk about employee group plans, there's actually two types that we can kind of categorize them into, and it's mainly about the cost, right? Like how the cost is paid, right? So with contributory plans, this is a employee group plan in which employees share the cost, right? So contribute, right? So the employees contribute, right? The employers always have to contribute, right? When I mean contributory, right, it means that the employees contribute. So in this case, if the employees contribute to the cost, right, which includes paying premiums, right? So if the employees contribute, then insurance companies require at least 75% of all employees to participate, okay, in the plan. Okay. Now, if we have a situation where the employees do not share the cost, right, this is called a non-contributory group plan, right? Non-contributory. And this requires that 100% of all employees be eligible, right? 100% of all employees be eligible. Okay. So this percent requirement is here, right, in which we kind of tie the cost to risk consideration. This ensures that, right, the plan covers the majority of the employees, right, within the company as well, right? Okay. So now we can go back to take a look at this question of, right, can the employer be the policy owner and the beneficiary? So let's take a look at two very specific business type plans, right? So we've taken a look at previously individual plans, right? We've looked at universal life, we looked at index universal life, etc. But we also have these specific business plans that we want to take a look at. So we start off by looking at the key person policy. So this is where it's insurance purchased by a business on the life of a key employee whose death would cause significant financial loss to the company. So let's look at that first. So with that, it can be a CFO, for example, right? Or an individual that has been essential to generate revenue for the company, right? So maybe an advisor, someone like that. And if we look at the second part here, right, the beneficiary, right, is typically the business, right? Because business owns the policy and pays the premiums, right? So the business is at loss, right, if the key employee, right, passes away, right? So they would be able to receive the death benefits that would pay for a replacement, right, or any training that's involved for recruiting a new individual. Then we also have the buy-sell agreement, right? So the buy-sell agreement is also known as a business continuation agreement. So if we have two owners, right, of a business and one of the owners passes away, right, then the death benefits from the deceased business owner can be utilized to ensure that the business is transferred to the other owner, right? That's still alive. And so those proceeds, right, would be used as mentioned here to purchase ownership interest, right, from the deceased owner, right? Okay, so again, we can kind of see how this is a buy-sell or business continuation agreement, right? Ensure that even when one business owner passes away, right, the other business owner can still successfully continue the business. Okay. And then one other note that I want to make is that um, there's no individual underwriting involved when we talk about group life insurance, right? So there's group underwriting involved. And so if we go back to look at some of the basics here that we want to know, right? We can see why, there might be less administrative fees because of